Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing part 2 of my Floss Gloss review, swatches, collections, all that good stuff. And today we are looking at 14 different floss glosses. So I did with the first video, I did like their newly released and newly stocked polishes. This video is going to concentrate on like the colorful aspect of Floss Gloss, and then the next video is going to concentrate on like their neutral side. So I do have 14 bright, beautiful polishes to share with you today. In the description box below, I will link the Floss Gloss site as well as their Instagram page, and I will also link my Instagram page where you can see more swatches of everything in today's video. And let's go ahead and get started. So for all of today's swatches, I am going to be using the Floss Gloss top coat. And up first we have Picnic, and this is described as a true burgundy cream with gray undertones. So here is our first coat of Picnic. This does go on really smooth. It is pretty opaque here on this first coat. It does feel more like a jelly than a cream though, so it is still a little bit sheer here on this first coat. I did have a little bit of running and pulling with this one, but I am always super cautious with reds because I absolutely hate getting it in my cuticles. So I was trying to work in a little bit thinner coats. So here's our second coat, and I thought it was completely opaque in 2 coats. I did do 3 coats for my swatch photo though, because I did realize I still had some low spots. So depending on your application, 2 to 3 coats. This one also dries very glossy. So there's 2 coats. Up next we have Bikini Coral, and this is described as a neon coral orange cream with hot orange undertones. So here's 1 coat of Bikini Coral on its own. I am going to go ahead and layer it over white on my other 2 fingers. I really don't think this is one that actually needs the white though. On 3 coats on its own, it is absolutely beautiful without the white base. This does dry to a matte finish as well, so if you don't like that, you will want a nice glossy top coat. But this has a fantastic formula with awesome coverage. It looks completely opaque here on 2 coats because it's freaking my camera out a little bit, but I did still have some patchiness. I absolutely hate using a white base for neons though, because I feel like I have to cover every little inch of white, and it just ends up making a mess, and I hate getting I hate getting oranges and yellows in my cuticles too because they stain. The reds are hard to clean, but the yellows and oranges do stain. So there's 3 coats and 1 coat. Up next we have Neon Nacho, and this is described as a neon opaque yellow-orange cream. Here's our first coat of Neon Nacho, and I'm doing the same thing where I'm going to go ahead and layer it over white on 2 nails and then 3 coats on its own on 2 nails, and I had a fuzzy there and I'm so sorry. But this is another one again that I don't think is necessary to have the white base. It builds up in 3 coats on its own, and it is very bright on its own without needing that white base. Again, this one does dry down matte, so if you don't like that, you will want a nice glossy top coat here as well. It's also, for me, really difficult when I'm using a white base to get like an even coat of the color. So not this one particularly, but you will see with another one from today's video that it was just really, really hard. It still looked all uneven and patchy to get even coats. So another reason I hate white bases, but this one doesn't need it. So there's 3 coats and 1 coat. Next up we have Limon, and this is described as a neon lime green cream. So here's 1 coat of Limon, and this is one that the base coat being white will make a difference. It's beautiful on 3 coats on its own, but when it's built up on its own, it does look more like a lemony neon, and when it's over the white, it looks much more yellow, which you'll see here in just a second. Again, this one has a pretty good formula. It did stain the skin around my nails like I knew it would. Easy to use, no running, pulling, anything like that. And this one also, again, dries matte, so you will want a nice glossy top coat here as well. So here you can kind of see what I was getting at. It just looks more neon yellow as opposed to like ripe banana, if that makes any kind of sense. So there's 3 coats and 1 coat. Next up we have Glowstar, and this is described as a minty yellow-green pastel cream. Here's our first coat of Glowstar. This covers pretty well here on this first coat. It is pretty patchy though, so I am going to have to build it up. This one does take 3 coats for me to build up completely. Good formula here though, not too thick, not too thin. It does pull to the thinner side of formulas in the spectrum of it though. Here's 2 coats. I did still have some patching here on 2 coats, but depending on your application and your preference, you may end up being fine with 2. I am going to go in for a 3rd. I am working in extremely thin coats here though. Through all of these, all 14 of today's polishes, I am working pretty thinly. These brushes are a little bit on the short side, so I was getting less polish than I'm used to on my brush. So again, this covers completely in 3 coats. It dries fast and it dries glossy. I would recommend a top coat though if you want it to last any length of time. And I didn't have any staining with this one either. So there's 3 coats. Next up we have Moon Baby, and this is described as an icy blue gray pastel cream. Here's our first coat of Moon Baby. This one has a pretty good formula. It is a little bit on the thinner side though, so you do have to be cautious of how thick you do your coats. If you do it too thick, it'll tend to pull from the center of your nail and like kind of puddle at the edges, so working thinner coats here is the best way to do it. I did also have some kind of a little bit of running if I was working in thicker coats, so it is still a little bit patchy here on the second coat. That is mostly due to working in such thin coats, but depending on your application and preference, again, you may be able to get away with 2 coats here. Again, this dries fast and this dries glossy, and I am sorry about the background noise. So here's our 3rd coat, and this does cover completely in 3 coats for me. This one also self-levels really, really nicely. That is due to it being on the thinner side of formulas as well. So there's 3 coats. Next up we have Wet, and this is described as an electric turquoise cream. So here's our first coat of Wet. And this has much the same formula as Moon Baby, where in the spectrum of formulas, it is on the thinner side, so you do have to work in thinner coats as to avoid any running and pulling that could occur with a thinner formula. Here's our second coat, and again, since I am working in such thin coats, it is still a little bit patchy here on the second coat, so I am going to go ahead and go in for a 3rd. This is a delightful polish to work with though. It does dry fast. It's very easy to use, especially once it's built up. Like if you have a base coat, which I don't swatch with and I should, you probably won't have any running or pulling. This one also dries glossy, and it does cover completely here in 3 coats. So there's 3 coats. Next up we have Elcapitan, and this is described as a deep cobalt blue. Here's our first coat of Elcapitan. This has a good formula, easy to use, easy to work with, not too thick, not too thin. It also, just like Picnic, the red polish, the very first one that I showed you, has kind of like a jelly-ish feel to it, where it's pretty sheer here on this first coat, and being such a darker color, if it was more of a cream, it should, in theory, cover a little bit better. This one's also going to dry down completely matte, so if you don't like that, you will want a nice glossy top coat. So I'm showing you 2 coats today. My swatch photo is 3rd. It's another case of I thought it was completely opaque in 2, and then I went to take my photos and I definitely needed to add a 3rd. So bear that in mind. I would recommend 3 coats on this one. So there's 2 coats. Up next is 95% Angel, and this is described as the perfect periwinkle cream. Here's our first coat of 95% Angel. This goes on pretty smooth, easy to use, easy to work with. I didn't have any kind of running or pulling, but it is a little bit on the thinner side, so it is very possible that it could happen. Here is our second coat, and most people could probably get away with this in 2 coats. I'm going to go ahead for a 3rd because I kept overworking the polish, so I was peeling off some as I was applying more. So if you don't do that and you're sure of your brush strokes, this would potentially be a 2-coater. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and show you 3, which I recommend anyway. It does deepen the color up just a little bit. This, like the rest of the creams, dries fast and dries glossy. I also didn't have any staining here, or with the last one. I'm not sure if I said that. So there's 3 coats. Next up we have Lavish, and this is described as a lavender pastel cream. Here is our first coat of Lavish. And you'll see with this one that I had some separating on my nails. I'm not sure what it was from. I thought maybe I had oil on my hands, so I went and I took some acetone and reapplied this, and this is the second take that I did of it, and I was still getting kind of that separation. So I don't know exactly what that is. It could potentially be user error, but either way, this does cover completely in 2 coats for me. It dries fast, it dries glossy, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's not too thick and not too thin on the formula either. So there is 2 coats. Next up we have Candy Paint Job, and this is described as a deep purple cream packed with magenta glitter, and this is encapsulated in an eggplant jelly base. Here's our first coat of Candy Paint Job, and this covers really well here on this first coat. I am going to go ahead and build it up though because I do have some lower spots. The formula on this is nice. It's not too thick or too thin, but the glitter in there is applying a little sandy, as would most textured polishes. So just keep that in mind if it's something you're interested in. You will need a couple coats of top coat for this one because it is going to dry extremely textured, and the glitter in there is also going to make it pretty difficult to remove. So if you remember beforehand, a nice peel-off base coat is highly recommended here because I did not, and I ended up scrubbing with acetone for quite a while for this one. It does dry matte as well, so you'll want a top coat for that too. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Perf, and this is just described as a mid-tone pink cream. Here's our first coat of Perf. And this one goes on really nice as well, pretty smooth, easy to apply. Not too thick or too thin. It's that like happy medium where it stays where you put it and it doesn't want to run or pull. It's a really nice, easy to work with formula. Here's our second coat, and this one does cover completely in 2 coats for me, though it is borderline 3 coats if you overwork your polish, or if you work in extremely thin coats. I'm going in with medium coats here because the formula was really nice. This one also dries fast and dries glossy, so there is 2 coats. Next up is the Pink Nugget, and this is described as a rose silver glitter, and this is in a clear base. So here's 1 coat of the Pink Nugget over Perf, and this has a pretty good glitter to base ratio. It's easy to use, it's not too thick. This glitter can be built up by either applying multiple coats or sponging. I did choose to do it as a topper today though. This is going to dry textured, and it is going to be a little bit difficult to remove as well. So there is 1 coat. And lastly for today we have Maliboob Job, and this is described as a neon hot pink cream. And here we go again with the white base and not white base for Maliboob Job. This is our first coat, and it goes on absolutely beautifully. This is another one that I actually recommend skipping the white base altogether, not even experimenting with it. This is beautiful on its own, and it is patchy over the white. So if you're gonna use this one, I would highly recommend just doing it by itself. It's bright on its own. It's got a great formula. It does dry matte. If you don't like that, once again, you will want a nice glossy top coat. But this is what I was talking about with getting even coats. So the pinky went on just fine, and then this ring finger just got like question marked. So for my swatch photo, I actually did 2 coats over white. So doing 2 coats plus 2 coats of the color, like 2 coats of white and then 2 coats of the color, it's just not worth it to me. It's beautiful on its own, and I highly recommend that. So there is 3 coats and 1 coat. So my favorite from today's video is Wet. This is stunning. I wore this my entire vacation on my toes. It looked beautiful on the beach. It is such a summery shade. It doesn't need a white base to be like bright and stunning on your nails. I really thoroughly enjoyed this one, so Wet is my favorite from today. And guys, that is it. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of these polishes. Let me know if you plan on picking any of them up, and let me know what your favorite was. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and I will talk to you again next time.